Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really honored to moderate this session with this amazing panel that you'll soon be hearing from. Before we start, though, I'd like to know, are there any farmers in the room? Any other farmers in the room? Hands up. Okay, so then you get to ask them all the questions you want. You're it. So we have this amazing panel, and I'm going to they promised that they're going to keep their initial interventions short so that we'll have an opportunity for you to ask some questions. But let me introduce them, and I'll start from here. So William Bukunda is an entrepreneur and also a farmer from Rwanda. Dean Eisenhauer is a retired professor and used to farm a lot. Dean used to farm a lot and now farms just a little. Grace Mukarusagara is with the Institute and has been working with them in Rwanda, doing research on a range of issues related to irrigation. And Jerry Stahr is a farmer from Nebraska. And then Elisa Zancanaro Zanella is also a farmer from Brazil. And we were having a conversation over lunch, and it became very, very clear to me very quickly that we have a very diverse and broad range of experiences that they have to share, with the smallest farming space being an acre, and the biggest one being 26,000 acres. So there's a breadth of experience in terms of the kind of farming that they're doing. And I'll stop there and ask William to tell you about himself and his experiences. William.
Okay, thank you. Okay, first of all, it's a big, it's a big pleasure to be here. Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Caleb from Water for Growth, Water for Food. I'm really happy to be. It's a big honor to be here, and this is the biggest encouragement I have received in my life about agriculture. To be invited here, it's really a big honor for me. So I'm going to talk about my farm, but before to talk about my farm, I want to talk on my story, my background. So I'm almost 35 years old, and I grew up in Switzerland. I quit Rwanda in 1994 when, during the genocide against Tutsi, I had the opportunity to go as a refugee in Switzerland. So it's the way I grew up. I grew up in rural area there in Switzerland, and I had good education there in Switzerland as a mechanical engineering. So after my study, I had the opportunity to work for a big company in highway maintenance. So with that opportunity, I had a lot of chance to visit a lot of farm, a lot of landscape around Europe with this company. So talking about agriculture, I'm starting. To talk, I want to put you I want to bring you in the situation in Rwanda. Rwanda is the highest country, the highest population density population is the sub-Saharan. So we have 230 inhabitants per square kilometer, and here in Nebraska we have only 9. So Rwanda is really highly density population. Most of our population, most of our farmers, 95% of our farmers own only 0.2 hectares per person. So that shows you how density it is. So we don't have enough land. And also 75% of the farmers are really living with agriculture. And the total land in Rwanda about irrigated in Rwanda, they are really how to say that? The total irrigated in Rwanda is only 52 hectares, 52,175 hectares. So my farm, this is my farm in Gashora. It's an irrigated farm. We use technology of pumping water from down in the lake and to the top of the farm. You can see on the top of this land there is irrigation. There is our big dam, and we irrigate by gravity to the farm, by using gravity into the farm. I'm sorry, I'm a bit stressed. My English, I don't know if you are following me well. So, but yeah. So this is the systems that we irrigate. We use a simple system by pumping water to the top of the land, and by gravity we open top, and we know how quantity per minute we are using per tree. This is our technology there in the farm. This is the dams that we have in our farm, and the technology we use into our farm. So, and also we had opportunity in our farm to learn about conservation agriculture. That means our farm is permanently covered of some species like here we use some legumes to cover the land. Then we don't consume a lot of water. So this is our farm. So, so, oh wow, I'm lost, completely lost. But what I want to say here in this conference, it's about my success in agriculture. The success in my agriculture, it's the approach, the mindset that we have in agriculture. As an entrepreneur, I have an approach to say, okay, I'm going into agriculture to respond the needs on the market. I'm not going in agriculture to say, okay, I'm going to involve women and I'm not going to involve women or to reduce poverty. That is the point that I want to talk about. How can we attract young people in agriculture? This is my field, my focus. How can we involve young people in agriculture? How can you attract the image of those young people? It's my field. So I'm sorry. Thank you, and I'm lost.
William, there's nothing to be sorry about, William. One of the things that William said to me earlier on when we were talking at lunchtime was, and that was the point you were just making, was that his interest in becoming a farmer wasn't because he wanted to reduce poverty. It wasn't because he wanted to make sure that he helped women and improved the gender balance in agriculture. His interest was that this is a business, this is something that I can do to help make life better for myself, for my family. It was a business option. But then he also said a lot of his employees are women who are benefiting from working with him, also trying to make lives better for themselves. Is that correct?
Yeah, thank you.
So, let's hear from Dean, who can tell you his own story about how he used to farm and now he doesn't.
But anyway, thank you. So as mentioned, I'm a retired professor from the University of Nebraska, and I've had several titles since I've retired. One of them was the coordinator of our DWFI partnership with IHE in Delft, the Netherlands, and that was a really great opportunity for me. Having the title of Emeritus Professor was a long time goal of mine, and I have that, and so that's a nice title. Also being retired, one of my favorite titles was being grandpa, and so that's a nice one. This is the first time in my whole career I've been called a farmer, so this is kind of nice. But just to give you an idea, let's see, these slides are a little bit this is the tail end of this. I don't know if someone can change that, but basically, prior to my retirement, I was a hobby gardener, and as retirement was approaching, about 5 years before I retired, I decided, well, maybe I should start making plans for retirement, and I thought, well, maybe I could take my gardening hobby and make it into a market gardening business. And so this was 5 years before retirement, and I started building this up. I started building it up on our family farm, which is southeast of Lincoln here, about 30 miles, and it's been in the family for 128 years, and so I thought this was a good place to do this. And so what I want to, so I started this business called Grow Produce at that time, and my interest was basically farmers marketing and other marketing opportunities. So what I want to tell you about today are some of the issues that I've run into along the way of doing this. I basically did start out with 1 acre of organic gardening, and then that's in rotation with alfalfa, and so that I can maintain my organic nature. So basically my things that I've run into, obviously if you're going to get any farming business, but I think especially with fresh produce that's perishable, marketing is a key thing, and don't get into this without having that market established before. And so we did do the farmers market business for about 7 years. I also sold to a couple grocery stores here in Lincoln, Nebraska. One of the issues that you run into as you get bigger into, and I know 1 acre doesn't sound like you're very big, but on basically on produce production it can be unless you're completely mechanized, and that is the labor supply. And I went in this with kind of blinders thinking, well, when I get short of labor I'll find some local high school kids that I'll be able to hire, and that was sort of wishful thinking, to be real honest with you. So that has affected a lot of decisions I've made along the way, all the way from marketing to water management. And another one is issue that you have to deal with is that basically if you put 1 acre out of produce basically you're kind of an island in the middle of commercial agriculture in Nebraska, which is basically corn, soybean rotation, and so spray drift is always a concern of mine. And even my renter, who rents the rest of the farm ground around me, you know, I've sensitized him, and he's, by the way, he's my nephew, and so we want to maintain a good relationship. But it's something you always have to worry about when you try to put this in the middle of all this other typical agriculture that we would see in Nebraska. So then I want to also touch on the water management aspects of this. So as I said, you know, you're dealing with a perishable product, and so this isn't something you're going to produce and throw in a bin and then maybe 4 months later decide which elevator you're going to take it to and at what price. Basically, this is stuff you have to deal with right away, and so you only have a matter of days to utilize this product. We have a small market garden small farmers market in Syracuse, Nebraska, which we were part of for about 7 years, and so that was one of our first outlets. And then eventually we did go into selling also to a couple grocery stores. But all this takes a lot of labor with the harvesting, the sorting, the loading, the unloading, and so before long you realize, I'm not sure I can keep up with this. And another thing I did along the way is that another outlet I developed, not really developed, but utilized, was the Food Bank of Lincoln, which is basically a warehouse facility that provides food for the disadvantaged people. And I'm a strong believer in the need for fresh produce for all people, and especially if it can be locally grown fresh produce. So this has been a great outlet for me, and in fact that's what I have evolved to now. And this is when I've scaled down, as I decided I'm going to get out of the marketing business. I'm no longer in the farmer's market. I'm no longer in the grocery store business. I basically, all my produce now goes to the Food Bank of Lincoln, which has really reduced my labor demands, because now I can put that in a pickup, take it up to them and unload it, and that's basically the end of it. They can take care of it from there. So just real quickly then, so a few slides of my farm and some of the produce that we produce. As I said, this is an organic operation, and so you can see that I try to get all the weeds out of there, but you can still see, those who have a sharp eye can see some left over. One of the things that I want to end up here talking a little bit about water management, and this also comes back to this labor issue, and that is that prior to me getting into the market gardening business, as I said, I was a hobby farmer, and so being a water management specialist, I thought, well, I'm going to use drip irrigation for everything, and so I used surface drip, and that was all fine when it was nice. Everything was nice and small, but once you get to an acre in size and realize you need a drip line for every row out there, and you need to lay that out every time you need to set up for the season, and then if you have any mechanical cultivation, this all has to be moved. And so basically I had to shift then I decided to shift from having drip lines to go to a sprinkler system. This is Nelson's polytube system. So we basically went from drip lines that were 1 meter apart to laterals that are now 10 meters apart. And what that means is I have 1/10 the amount of labor involved in laying this system out each time I have to lay it out. So that's that was a labor-saving device for me. I know it's not ideal in terms of always wetting leaves and all that stuff, but it was strictly driven mainly by labor. But with that, then you got to realize you have all these different crops. I have 18 different crops, 30 different planting dates. So you got this water demand out there now, pretty much all under this one sprinkler. And so now you have to decide which one of these plants am I going to look at to decide when to irrigate. So in drip that was not so bad when you control and row by row. But now when you've got this whole large area irrigated by sprinkler, then that becomes more critical. And so basically what you do is you look at the product that is most valuable and which one's in the most critical stage of growth, and realize that some are overwatered and some are underwatered. So here's an example of sweet corn. There's in this picture about 6 or 7 different plantings, and so you can imagine you're not irrigating all of these planting dates in the ideal time. You have to compromise and look over there and say, well, you know, that corn over there that's just beginning to tassel is probably the most critical, and so I'm going to look at the moisture there and irrigate accordingly. One other thing, when you're harvesting things like sweet corn and you're taking out a harvest once or twice a week, now all of a sudden you have land that's not producing anymore, but it's still underneath the sprinkler. So now you find out what you're doing is irrigating weeds for the rest of the year. So that's a problem. And so I have gone to cover crop as one way of at least not having weeds out there all the time when I'm producing. So with that, I'm going to stop and I will throw that last slide in and say, I do have the luxury of having my own laboratory that we've used for educational courses that I've had for the Water for Food Institute. And I no longer furrow irrigate, but we can still set up furrow irrigation and use this to teach students that are coming here from IHE in the Netherlands in a field course that we offer. So with that, I'm going to stop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we go on to Grace, any questions for William or Dean? Anybody have any quick questions for William or Dean? Please come to the mic.
Greg Dewey, Northern Water. Dean, what's the cover crop you use?
Is this mic working? Yeah. Basically what you saw in the picture, I actually planted a mixture of oats and turnips and radishes. The oats didn't really survive that, but the turnips and radishes did. So.
Please.
Hi, I have a question for William. This seems to be a great way you are actually inspiring some of us students who are here looking at a businessman who's also a farmer, but his grandfather. So my question to you is, where do you see yourself, your farmer person, in 10 years? You can answer it anyway.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's working.
Okay. The vision of the farm, when I started, it was really to show our.
Keep talking.
It's like a model we started to show our people, then it can be our young people, because in Rwanda we are suffering of a bad image of agriculture, young farmers. To be a farmer in Rwanda is really the worst thing that it can be. That's what I started the business. With my background I had in Switzerland, it can be a prestige to be a farmer. And there, in this farm, I really want to show that we can be a successful businessman in farming. That is the approach that I have with this farm. I say there is a market, and we have to respond to this market. We are not going to fix this farm for responding. So we are going to use this farm to respond the needs of market. We are not going to reduce poverty. I don't connect, for myself, I don't connect farming with poverty. I don't connect farming with involving women in activity. I connect farming in my mind. I connect farm with business as a business. And in that business, you can engage more and more people. So in 10 years, that's I would dream, it's my dream, to multiply this kind of farms, to have many in our country following our example. Thank you.
Okay, any other ones? No? So he has a dream, and Grace has been working in Rwanda on irrigation, and so she's going to tell us a little bit about her experience and her research.
Good evening, everyone. It's my honor to be here to share my experience in irrigation. I've been working with farmers in Rwanda for almost, after my graduate school, my university from 2011. I've been working with farmers with different behaviors from different parts of the country. I started with a smallholder farmers where they've been growing different crops. In 2011, the government came up with a suggestion of having irrigation due to the drought that came in 2010 in Rwanda, in 2000, sorry. So the government implemented 500 hectares of irrigation, under which central pivots were covering about 20 hectares. But later on, the government extended the project to about 500 hectares, and all under central pivots. It was quite a challenge to me and to the people that I've been working with to work with farmers with a new technology that is being embedded in the country. So it's like me, farmers, we are all learners. So it was quite a challenge. It was our first time to say center pivot, but as we had technicians from Valley, South Africa, they gave us training. Each month we had a training about how to use a center pivot. I think after 1 year, I was able to cope up with the system. In eastern part of the country, that's where the irrigation was operating from. We've been growing maize, soya beans, but farmers do not like soya beans, beans, and vegetables. Most of the challenges that we've been facing in our systems or using irrigation in Rwanda, the cost of irrigation is expensive. The farmers that are owning the pivots, they are old. Some of them, they are old. Another challenge was about the market. because it's in the village, so it's like we had no access to the markets in the cities. Most of our products goes to the city, so we had no access to our produce. Another challenge was about the knowledge. How can we transform the knowledge to the old people that were using those center pivots? What we did, it's like we formed farmer groups, what we call cooperatives, and water user associations. So in those cooperatives, everyone was free to share or to say about his own problems he's facing or he's seeing in terms of growing under a center pivot. So that helped us to come out with some of the solutions. How are we going to come up with these problems we are having? Though there are still some challenges that we do face. Another thing what we did while I was working with farmers in Kajitumba, we call it Kajitumba, that site is called Kajitumba. We visited some potential farm. There is a farm that they're doing commercial farming in the east. It's an exemplary farm that is it's the first one, I think, in Rwanda doing agriculture like a business. Farmers, they came up as, how is it so this person, for him, is growing maize, like what we are doing. He's growing soya beans. For him, he was doing seed multiplication by that time. How about us? What can we do? But although there are questions in their hearts, but there was no solution because people who share pivot, it's like one pivot you might find is shared by 60 people, one pivot. So it's like people, they come up with different ideas. When can we plant? When can we harvest? Today one is sick, another one is too old, he cannot harvest. It was in that sense, but the government is trying to help the farmers to cope up with the irrigation and also to come up with some solutions. There are some big companies that are coming in that are growing French beans for export. So they are helping those farmers to work with those farmers to lease their land so that they can work in those farms. Or those farmers, they can be outgrowers, even though the government does not emphasize on that. Regarding to what I'm working with Water for Food Institute, we are doing a research of business models for smallholder farmers. There are different models we are working on. We have a case of where irrigation is done as a service, and that case, it was conducted on a group of entrepreneurs. If we are in the last session, it's a group of students in Rwanda. Others are here in USA, in Colorado. It's called water irrigation. They are giving irrigation as a service. There is also another model where the government is subsidizing irrigation equipment to the farmers. The farmer came up with a project, and the government pays 50% of the project, and the farmer pays 50-50. It's shared. There's also another model about government-funded irrigation, where the government gives irrigation for free to the farmers. Thank you. Your questions are more welcome.
So any questions for Grace? It sounds like you've had an interesting and challenging time learning and working with your farmers. Yeah. Anybody? No? Then we will pivot to our last two speakers who have, let's say they have bigger farms. So first of all, Jerry, in his new hat, he might tell you about his hat.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, the first thing I have to do is make a commercial statement. From May 28th to June 1st is the Bahia, Brazil Farm Show. You still have time to get tickets to get there, okay? So, all right, a little about me. I'm kind of glad Stahr comes before Zanella. That doesn't happen very often, so poor Elisa's last. That's the way it goes. And I may have a comment to Grace when she said something about old farmers. She's hitting pretty close to home. I've been farming for over 40 years. I was in the Navy. When I got out, I decided farming was for me. I'd gone to school a little bit before that, and I was one of those kids that couldn't decide what he wanted to do. Well, all of a sudden, farming looked pretty good. First years, we had very small equipment. We had a 4-row planter, 36-inch rows, so it was 12 feet wide, about 3.5 meters. Takes a long time to do an 80 with that, I can guarantee you. It's called an open station tractor, which is basically one that doesn't have a cab, so it was pretty darn dirty and pretty cold in the spring, I can guarantee you. As time went on, we went up to a big 6-row, 30-inch planter, which gained me 3 feet, which still took a long time to do an 80. But as time progressed, we went up to 8-row, and then we went ahead and progressed. I have 16-row equipment now. I've had that for probably the last 15 to 20 years. We used to do an awful lot of tillage. We do very little anymore. I was one of the first people that started ridge planting in our area, and it was just something that followed up because we did a lot of pipe irrigation. You always had to ridge the corn anyway. So why not plant on top of that ridge? It was undisturbed. It was out of the, in those big rainstorms, and we have a few low spots, kept the plants out of the water. It did a lot better. And now I hate to disc anything because it's, to me, the worst place to possibly plant anything. I love the no-till idea, and I push that as much as I can. As time went on, I've worked extensively with Extension in our area. They've been great. This is part of the reason I'm advertising this farm show. A year from this last January, we had a group come out in the middle of the summer right after the Water for Food conference and visited us, and of course we had a great time. And they gave up the Omaha Zoo to come out to my little old podunk farm. I farm about 1,200 acres, probably hit a high of 1,800 at one point in time. I'm down to 1,200 because I'm getting to that point where I can retire too. I am getting old enough, Grace. The other thing is my son's kind of getting involved in it, and that's a good thing. So I can get uninvolved and get a little bit more out. I'm kind of tired of the paperwork and trying to do the marketing and all that other junk that goes with this farming thing. I love it, but I'm ready for a little bit of a break. The only problem with that is the fact that he likes a steady paycheck and insurance. And I don't understand that. Maybe you folks do. I don't get that. But I've got a great family. I've had 5 children. They're range in age from 42 to 29. No, she's 30 now. Excuse me. I'm losing track. But the middle one's getting involved in farming. They all took part of the University of Nebraska, graduated from here. We've got 3 engineers. We've got a doctor out of that, and it's all due to my wife. Trust me, the genes don't come from me. I irrigated. We started out with siphon tubes. I don't know if anybody, raise your hand, had siphon tubes or seen what they look like. Yes, you hate them, don't you? Okay. Next thing was pipe, which was for irrigation, which helped me with my good old ridge till. And then now I'm primarily pivot. And it's probably the most efficient way to go. Like I said, I work with the university. We try to do everything we can to conserve our water, our fertilizer, and all inputs. And it also helps me out, believe it or not. If you don't have to spend your money squirting all that water on your crop, I think Dr. Eisenhauer can figure that out. The fact that you don't want to waste it. It's a very precious resource, and we are very cautious and careful with it. I work with I've worked with the extension part on using moisture blocks to schedule my irrigations, which I think is the only way to do it. And you can do it very cost effectively, let's put it that way. You don't have to spend a fortune on stuff. But other than that, that's Jerry Stahr in a nutshell. I appreciate you folks being here. This is a very worthwhile conference, and don't forget the farm show in Bahia. Okay.
So before I ask Elisa to join me, I would like us to give an extra hand to Jerry, because this is the worst possible time for him to be sitting right here, spending time with us. He was on the farm this morning before he came in, so extra hand to thank you. So our last panelist is Elisa. Come on up and tell us about you, your family, and your farm. Yes.
Thank you very much to the invitation to be here and to talk a little bit about Brazilian agriculture. My name is Elisa Zancanaro Zanella. I'm a farmer from Brazil, and I graduated in biology. We are a family farm. This is my mother with me. She is accounting. This is my father. He is the CEO, the big boss, my example. And thank you, Dad, for all the dedication to me. He is here. The next is my brother. He's an agronomist, and he works with us. And my sister, she is in the college. She is studying agronomy too. Our farm is in Brazil, located in west from Bahia state. The agriculture is the main activity in this region. There are large properties and several rivers. It's located 590 miles from the ocean. There's no beaches, but still worth a visit. And join us in Bahia Farm Show. Our main crops are soybean. We plant 50% of our area with soybean, 33% with cotton, 13% with bean, and 10% with corn. We have an irrigation system in our farm because the precipitation is not regular. The rain is just in the summer, and even in the summer, we stay 24 days without rain. So we have surface water irrigation. In this blue line is where we capture the water in the river, and in this blue line is the water pipe. The water pipe gives the water to this red line, that is the canal irrigation, the irrigation canal. And the irrigation canal distributes the water into the pivots. We have a license to use 145,000 cubic meters of water daily. Our water pipe has 1.3 miles with 47 inches diameter. And the irrigation canal has 8 miles. And here in the right side is a picture of our irrigation canal. And to build this canal, we removed 159,000 cubic meters of land. In this area, we have 21 pivots in about 6,000 acres planted. In this white pivots is cotton. The water is very important to us. That's why we have a water management. We use water software, and this software determines crop water needs based on climate, soil, crop, and equipment data. And the person who created this software are here, Everardo. Thank you. Most of our irrigation in Bahia is surface water, and we want to improve the irrigation to groundwater too. That's why the Irrigation Association in Bahia called AIBA started a study of hydric potential in West Bahia to know the potential of our aquifer, the Urucuia aquifer. So the AIBA partnered with University of Viçosa, University of Rio de Janeiro, University of Nebraska, and Bahia State Government. I'm also board member of the committee, River Basin Committee of Rwanda. In 1997, the water law in Brazil was responsible for decentralizing the water management, and then some committees were created, and I've been part of them since 2012. The River Basin Plan is made from us in committee and the government state from Bahia, and provides guidelines for water management and sustainability. And the committee handles conflicts between the different classes of users too. So, that's some pictures from me and my family. I would to show these pictures because to say that we are farmers since ever. This is with yellow shirt is me. My father is with my brother in his arms, and my grandfather with the hat, and my cousins. And the other picture is my brother and I. Being a farmer is not based on what we do, it is who we are. Thank you very much.
Okay, before we go to, I've got some additional questions for them, but before we do that, does anybody have a question for Jerry or Elisa? Or a comment? Come to the mic, please.
Hello, Elisa. Nice presentation. I'm Ivo, Daugherty, Water for Food. Because Nebraska has a long winter, we have only one growing season, typically for corn and soybeans. My question is, in your farm in Brazil, how many growing seasons do you have for soybeans? Because the weather is different. How many seasons do you grow? How many seasons do you have?
Hi, Ivo. We have 2 for 3 seasons in 1 year. We can plant beans in the middle of the year, and then soybean, and then cotton. That's amazing because we have warm all the year, and with irrigation we can do that.
Anybody else? Please. Pasquale.
Just out of curiosity, you have shown the family, your grandpa. when the whole story started, how much back goes and how he started. You have a farm that, if I read it correctly, is over 6,000 acre, beyond 6,000 acres. So how did he start from the beginning? If you can say something like that.
I don't know exactly when it started. What I know is my grandfather is from Italy, North Italy, and he was a farm there. And my grandfather went to Brazil, and then his son was a farmer too. And my grandfather was a farmer in Santa Catarina. My father is a farmer, and I'm a farmer, and I hope that my children will be a farmer too. Yeah, I don't know exactly when it begins.
Okay, anybody else? If not, let's do another pivot. So I'm going to ask each of you as briefly as you can. We've spent the last 2 days talking about technologies, water productivity, water management, innovations, a whole range of different subjects, all intended to basically to help you produce better, to help us get the food we need for food security. So as you've been listening to these conversations and the presentations this week and the discussions this week, would each of you take a moment to think about it and then answer 2 questions? One, is there something that you've learned that you think was going to be useful for you going forward? And 2, if you have an answer, is there something that you would have liked to have heard about that we did not discuss? And then we'll see what we all think about it. So who wants to start? Oh, okay, William is ready.
Okay.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, so I'm really happy to have been here. I learned a lot about agriculture and new technology. But what I think with the all that I listen to, people here are thinking about policies and about technology, new technology. But we, as in the field in Africa, we are far away from this kind of approach. We just need a model, like I like the pictures and you show that it's a model farm. You see, your father, your grandfather were farming and succeed. They pay you the scholarships. You have models. But in Africa, we don't have models. Models is a rainfield farming, and so it's really a bad life of farming. So that is really a good image than what we need to show people that we can succeed and to be inspired. We need some inspiration. That is really what I wanted to say about those inspirations. That's what we need in our country. So thank you for that.
Thank you, and I'm sure that you are in the right way.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right from yesterday, I've been learning a lot from different sessions. From the beginning, everyone was mentioning about water. So back home, water is an important thing, and we must use it efficiently. And I call upon the Rwandan students that are here. We have a lot of gaps for you. It's you to think about where you will go and what you will do. Thank you very much.
For me, what is amazing here in Nebraska is how many pivots you have here. It's wow. I saw the pictures in Brazil, and for me, it was amazing to see here. And the technology of sustainability and the NRDs and the How you manage this water is the technology that I will show in Brazil, and what was more important to me here.
Well, in some ways I'm a little bit embarrassed about this, something I knew about all along, because I've been involved in conservation agriculture for my whole career, and Jerry and I go back a long ways, and I was involved in ridge plant work, and residue management has been a key to work I've done throughout my career at the university. But if you looked at my slides, you saw a lot of bare ground, and the reason for that was that it's an organic farm, and so I don't use herbicides, and so I use mechanical tillage, and then I lose all that. And so Meshfin's talk about water productivity and the fact that it really struck home to me that water productivity, if I remember the slide right, showed that it was lower in eastern Nebraska than it was out in the irrigated regions of central and western Nebraska. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that probably a lot of that land is not irrigated, and so what's happening, of course, is that the evaporation component of that ET is a bigger player in the eastern part of Nebraska, and I need to be more mindful of that on my own gardening system. And the reason it doesn't get mulched the way it should is because of labor. I'm another one of those old farmers, by the way. I don't get as much done as I used to, so thank you.
Well, I didn't completely finish my story with the Brazilian group coming out to visit. Zanella and Aziz, Eduardo was up there somewhere. I got an invitation at the end. Anytime you have a good time, they gave up the zoo to come to my place, and I'm going, that's impressive. Well, they asked me to come to Brazil, and I'm going, well, sure, I would love to go to Brazil. Well, with the Water for Food Institute, and on behalf of the organization from Brazil, I got there, and I'll tell you what, it was just amazing. We were treated like royalty. You folks are wonderful, and like I said, farmers are our brotherhood. We really are, and I didn't have any brothers. I got 2 sisters, love them dearly, but a brother would have been nice. Zanella, you would have been a great brother. The other, I guess, if I'm going another direction, like I said, it's all about family, and that's why I've done what I've done. It's been a great life. It's a good place to raise a family. The only problem is that with all these people up here, let's see, we had 35 employees, we had 150, and you have to have seasonal help, and I'm the only one, so that I can't get along with anybody, obviously. So, but there's a difference, and the thing is, we produce a lot, and you probably do more with your 35 people that you're helping out than I do by myself, because you're helping out so many other families, and I appreciate that. But we have so much excess here, and a lot of times it doesn't get spread around to the places it should be spread. And that is just absolutely criminal, and some days you wish the good Lord could just put his hand up and fix the problem. But we need to keep working on that. And I appreciate being on this panel. It's just been, these guys are wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to push you all a little bit more because nobody said what you would like to see next year. If you were to come back next year, what would you like to hear more about? So last words from each of you, and then if anybody else has a final question, we'll take those and then we'll close.
I'd like to hear more about the NRD system, how they manage the water here. For me, this is very interesting, and I'd like to know more about this.
For the next year, I would like to hear more about the use of groundwater in irrigation.
From my point of view, I would like to hear less connection between agriculture in Africa and reducing poverty and involving women in agriculture. I think it's really the worst thing that it can do for us. You are connecting our agriculture to poverty, and you are connecting agriculture to resolve some problem. I think we should go into, okay, agriculture is a business. So to make agriculture cool, to make agriculture, okay, to attract more young people, more young educated people. But if you are selling and we are going to reduce poverty and you are going to involve women, so that's you miss a lot of potential young people who can be involved in that field. So I think we have to change and to show that we can have success in agriculture in Africa. There is opportunity. It's something sexy. It can be sexy to be a farmer. It can be sexy to be in agriculture.
So, it's pretty common for people to look at Nebraska as a laboratory for irrigation in the world, and I think that, and I have to admit, I wasn't here for both days, so I don't know what was all presented, but I think we still need to be concerned about groundwater sustainability. We have areas in western Nebraska that still have groundwater depletions even during wet years. And that needs to be thought about more, I think, in terms of what's going to happen to those regions, what's going to happen to other parts of the high plains, and what are our strategies for dealing with that in the future.
I need somebody to invent a time machine, because this is, as was said, my busiest time of the year. Either that or sell my son a lottery ticket so he can quit his job and take over, and then I can come here and enjoy the conference. I didn't get here nearly long enough, but I enjoyed what I got to see, and I agree that I think the NRDs play a very important part in Nebraska, and I know Brazil is really looking at that, and I think that's a very positive direction. Thank you.
Okay, so before we close, does anybody, after having heard everything you've heard, does anybody please come to the mic. Just, it doesn't have to be a question, it could also be an observation or something you want to share.
Thank you, my name is Raisa, and I really enjoyed the presentation. I have a question for William. So I heard a lot about involving the youth in Rwanda, because I really know how it's viewed agriculture in Rwanda as something which is not cool. So do you have any programs that involves youth in Rwanda to also let them know you're farming, you're doing this, and what are those programs?
Thank you. My point of view is to show the success in farming. So in my point of view, as a businessman, I run an hotel, I run several business. So to show that young people that we can succeed in farming, young people who are coming to me, and I am showing them I have an hotel there, I have a farm there, I'm winning more money in farming. That is, it's make attractive for young people. I'm making business in that business. It's not the worst things that you can do. There is an opportunity there. So that is attracting more young people. If they have an image or a successful story, that's what we need more, successful story.
Oh, this one more.
Thank you. I'm Esther from Nigeria. I have 2 comments. You asked what we expect if we happen to be part of the participants next year. I want this program to integrate field trip practical, to see some typical irrigation projects within the environment, so that we see what is going on here and also learn from whatever is going on here, or also maybe suggest based on our own experience back at home. And I also want a situation whereby the countries that will be included among those that will participate in this particular session, farmers and those who work directly with farmers, to include other countries from West Africa, like Nigeria, maybe Ghana or whatever, we need to also be involved in this session. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have some shared suggestions and ideas for next year. We've also heard from our panel the things that they found useful, and we've heard their stories. And for me, they were fascinating stories. It's such a wide range of different experiences. And I just want us to thank them once again and say, we hope you get the inspiration that you need. We hope that you'll get more out of your old farmers. Keep on working with the energy. Continue enjoying the things that you're doing to help others in need, and put that hat on. Thank you.